Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends to the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky, and with me as always is the maestro of mail order mysteries, Eddie Guevara. Today's returning guest is the master of horror magic, Chuck Caputo.
All
Welcome,
right.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Awesome. So before we get started here, a few quick announcements for all our people in podcast land. If you're looking for something cool to read and you want some throwbacks to the old Mad magazines and Cracked magazines and even the Far Side comic strips, head over to stupidcomicsmagazine.com, and that's stupid spelled STOOPID. There are some awesome, funny comics magazines there, right in line with the old Mad magazines and Cracked and Far Side. It's like all three of those combined into one. There's 4 issues out now, 0 through 3. I picked up the whole run not too long ago and couldn't be happier with it. I know Eddie and a few other guys have also picked up the 4 issues that are out, and consensus is that they're fantastic. So if you're looking for something new, fun, and cool, head over to stupidcomicsmagazine.com. Also, check out our website over at houseoftheunusual.com. We have a free forum there where you could sign up for free and join some like-minded individuals in conversation. And there's a section there in the forum where you could ask questions and talk about previous podcasts. And if you're a fan of comics, mail order novelties, horror, or anything cool, and you would like to be a guest on here, drop us a line on there. You don't have to be a quote-unquote professional or anything in whatever you like. All you got to do is just be a fan and be willing to talk about, collecting or whatever you want to talk about, and drop us a line. Also, check us out on YouTube under House of the Unusual. There's tons of cool videos on there, some unboxing stuff, some videos from Chuck Caputo on magic, and just a lot of fun. So definitely check that out. Also, check out sea-monkeys.com for your latest Sea Monkey editions. You want some of those new pets for your house, so Todd Machen's waiting for your order, the king of the sea monkeys, and he will hook you up with some awesome new products, and they're always coming out with some new things. So that's all we got for announcements today. So, Chuck, I'm going to turn it over to you, brother. Welcome back, and what's new with you over there in Pennsylvania?
Hey, sunny Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's doing pretty good. We have some great weather. Am I picking up feedback?
Try to see if you can pull back a little because we're getting a lot of feedback.
Let me pull out the hardwire here. How about now? Does it sound better?
It sounds better, my friend.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, all right. Now we're back down to earth.
It sounds better without the hard drive. Yeah, but everything's going great in Pittsburgh. The weather's been good. I've been keeping busy doing shows. The shows are coming back. I've been building a lot of stuff. Last week we had a new roof put on, so I was handing the roofer some shingles, and then my main drain got plugged, so I was putting a snake down the main drain. So it was a pretty crappy week, actually.
Yeah, we've been getting. I'm sure because I'm over here in northeast Ohio. We've been getting hit with rain and thunderstorms the last few days. So I'm sure they've passed through your way because you're only about an hour or so away from me.
Yeah, they actually got pretty bad. We had high winds. There was a lot of trees that were down. I mean, it was a pretty bad situation, but it seems like it's improving.
Yeah, we even lost some power a little bit, and the internet was in and out due to the wind and all that. But thankfully, everything's up. It looks like the storms have passed for a little while here, so back to hot and humid weather in this area.
You know what? I actually know a few people, Joe, that still have their lights out. There's no electricity. It's been like 24 hours almost. Imagine that in this kind of heat without a fan or like an air conditioner. Oh.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of areas that were hit pretty hard, and their power is out for a while. So we'll keep them in our thoughts, and hopefully they're doing good and keeping cool however they can be, and hopefully their water and food situation is good, and
Absolutely. Wow.
hopefully they're surviving. So, Eddie, what's new over at House of the Unusual?
Man, do we have? Oh my God, so many new stuff out there. It's crazy. The first one is tomorrow night at 10 p.m. A big show is going to air. It's the first of its kind that's going to be hosted by none other than our Joe Pavlansky. And we're going to have Dr. Saab, myself, and the king of the sea monkeys himself, Todd Mitchell.
Awesome. I can't wait for that. And for everyone out there, that's going to be Thursday. That's already the first, right? July 1st.
July 1st, and it's live. So this is
Thursday.
live. You can watch it on YouTube, you can watch it on Facebook, and you can watch it on Instagram.
Awesome. So a lot of different places for people to come out. So it's Thursday, July 1st. At what time again?
It's going to be at 10 p.m. tomorrow, Joe. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to be like round robin, and we're going to show our collections and what we grew up with. The following week or so, depending, we'll give you the exact date because it's still not quite, posted there. But it's going to be Mr. Chuck Caputo, which is on the show tonight, and Dave Haversat. And we're going to do a whole magic thing. And here's the best part. Chuck is going to finally, but not least, going to introduce a complete line of Chuck Caputo magic in the horror line. And the first item that he has come up with is in this horror series called The Gathering. We're going to show the toy, and you'll be able to purchase it, or the magic trick, not the toy.
So that's the product where you buy the box called The Gathering, and when you get home and you open it, Chuck pops out and he does magic at your house, right?
Well, actually, I hear that when he pops out, he sucks the soul out of the guy in the front cover there.
He's collecting souls for a new magic trick.
That is correct. That is correct.
Awesome. Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff.
There's a lot of good stuff, but one of the most important things, and it's really an interesting topic tonight, is first I want to tell our listeners that when you hear all that strange noise in the background behind Chuck, is because the guy's a magician and he has a lot of paranormal stuff happening around him. and so he comes in from like a different world. He has a different dimension. He'll pop onto the show, and that he is a magician.
Hey, even the dead still enjoy magic, so
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's right. Hey,
so let's come across and let's say there's a lot of wonderful things happening and going to happen. Tomorrow's show is going to be one of its kind that we're trying. It's going to go live, and I think it's really phenomenal. Now, there's a very interesting thing when you guys are talking. We were talking about maybe doing some paranormal stuff for tonight. See if anybody has ever experienced the such or what their belief is, and all together on it. But one thing I wanted to bring out when you guys were talking about the rain and stuff is way back when we had Hurricane Sandy in our area, we were left in my area with 8 days with no power, no electricity.
Wow.
Man.
And the guy, there was because I live in a 3-family, and the third floor person would actually had a generator, and they would throw a plug down to me so I could run my refrigerator out of for a couple hours a day. You would hope that if it stayed cool, the milk and everything, it wouldn't go bad until the next day, and then you plug it in for a couple of hours more. And it was funny, but the best part about it was, since all the lights were out in the vicinity, there was very, very few lights outside, but you still had the lights from the city. And so you have what they call, you would say it's light pollution or whatever it is. But when you went out, the entire area, the entire street, you couldn't take a picture of it because it wouldn't come out. But when you looked at it with your eyes, it looked like there was like ash on the ground.
Oh, wow.
So it was a phenomenal. I mean, I even tried taking pictures with it, but I said, darn, I wish it would come out because it kind of looked phenomenal. It looked like you were like in another dimension or something. And the streets were just like, you looked at the sidewalk and it was all like there was ash all over the place. And it was phenomenal. And then everybody would, of course, come out and you start making friends that you never even knew.
Yeah.
There was nothing other to do than to hang out outside and talk to people. But I thought I'd bring that up. And another subject that I like to talk about tonight, if we can, you guys are aware that the government finally did expose their UFO thing, the report that was supposed to be out this month.
Yep.
And apparently it was only 10 pages long, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was 9 pages and 6 pages of information. Well,
No,
you could call it information, I guess.
well, actually, it was just one page with one sentence, and the rest were all blacked out with black ink. Right?
That's crazy, huh?
Yeah, I read the report, and there was really nothing in it. And supposedly that there's I believe it's a 70-plus page top secret report that was shown to Congress that was labeled top secret. And from what I've been hearing is that portion is also going to be declassified very soon and released to the public. And I guess that's there's a lot of videos that go with that and a lot more information. So I know that's the stuff that everybody was hoping for, but unfortunately we only got, the 6 pages worth of basically them telling us that they looked into stuff and they don't know what it is, which, like I've said before, I think they do know, but they're not going to tell us. But, I guess we'll have to wait and see, what's on this next report. Hopefully they release the whole 70-plus pages and, finally let us look at some, really good stuff. But, speaking of UFOs and paranormal, Chuck, you were saying before the show you had some paranormal experiences in the past.
Absolutely. Throughout the years, I did. I've had maybe about 3 or 4 things happen. The first, I was about maybe a 4-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid. And you know what? I was always a bad sleeper. Like I'd stay up kind of late, even when I was a kid. So my parents would feed me like Cheerios or something, like maybe 8:30 at night or something. And we had lived in this house. It was an older house. It was built by an older guy that we rented off of. And every night around that time, maybe 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, we'd hear footsteps up in the attic. I mean, I'm like, this was a mass hearing. We all heard it. My mother, my dad, my older sister. I mean, they were loud. They would bang up and down the steps. I mean, we have no idea what it was. But that would scare the crap out of me because I was a little kid and I didn't, and I knew something was wrong. At that age, I just didn't get the gist of what was going on. But it did upset me, and so that continued until the day we moved. And,
oh wow!
So my mom and dad heard it, my sister, my brother, and it would be every night around the same time, around maybe 9 o'clock, 9:30. So that was the first thing.
Now, did you ever look into that, as you got older of maybe the previous tenants in that house or anything?
You know what? At that time, I mean, we're talking back in the late 60s. I mean, you know what? People pretty much didn't really, didn't research that kind of stuff. They just kind of just went on with their lives. I don't know. It was like a different time era, whereas like now with TV programs like Ghost Hunters and everything, it made it kind of popular to like, check the history, like you said, maybe going with an EMF detector or something. But back in those days, people just didn't look into things too much. It was just accepted as an unexplained whatever. I think they might have asked the landlord about it, but he said, I don't know anything about it. So whether or not he was telling the truth, I have no idea.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of states now that have to, disclose that kind of stuff when selling a house, if there's been any type of
I did hear that.
Activity. I'm not sure what Ohio or Pennsylvania's laws are, but I know there's more and more states that are having to disclose that stuff, when a house goes up for sale. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you know what? I told a buddy of mine this. I've known him since probably 2nd grade, and he doesn't believe anything. I mean, he said, "Oh, that was probably a mouse." I said, "That was a mouse. It was a 200-pound mouse with 200-pound mouse with asthma. I think it even wheezed, whatever it was. You'd hear like, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was
One second. You've seen Tom and Jerry, right?
Yeah.
When he got the big kangaroo, so there's a possibility 200-pound
mouse.
It could have been a big kangaroo. No, but I mean, it was like heard by all of us. So it wasn't just like my imagination. We all heard it.
Chuck, I got to come clean, Chuck. You should never have told me that you might have had the robot plants as a kid. I was just there every day. I had to do it, Chuck.
Take a drink, everyone out there. He robot plants.
I mean, I was trying to look for it, Chuck, so I do it every night at 10. You know?
Yeah. He was
every night at 9:30, you go up and down the steps. Yeah.
Just give him a little food up there so he doesn't starve.
That was back in like 1968, somewhere around there. That was quite a while ago. Yeah. And then the other thing that happened, guys, was when my wife and I got married. We got married in 1992, so it's 29 years and some months now. And the house we moved into was vacant for a couple of years. It was owned by a nice Italian couple. They lived there for like 39 years, and they were still alive. And so we liked the place, and so we put in a bid and so forth. And then during the process, the strange thing happened at the house the other night. All the lights were on. The lights came on. And me being the suspicious person I am, I told my wife, "Hey, I bet this place is haunted." And so she said, "Oh, you're crazy. Come on." So they said, "Well, you know what? Like the inspectors probably left the lights on." Okay, so we said, "Okay, well that's probably it." So we bought the house and we did move in. And within a week or so, the ceiling fan started coming on for no reason. Lights started turning on. So I turned to my back office, and so I'm kind of paranoid about locking the locks and everything. We come down from from sleeping down, and the back door is wide open. Okay, which is a no. I mean, there would be no way that I would leave a door wide open. So it was just like more things like that, and so I was out all day at a couple of shows. And she said the TV kept going up in volume, going up, going down, and so forth. And I guess what kind of cinched it, one night I came home from some shows and I was lying on the couch. I was watching some TV and she was doing laundry, and she picked up a basket of clothing and went down the basement. And these left an old gossip bench. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but it was an old wooden seat that's attached to a desk where you put your telephone, from many years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm lying on the couch. This thing picked up and slid across the floor, blocked the cellar door. So my wife couldn't even get out. So I had to actually get up and move it. And so I said, "That's it. There's something going on here." And so so we called a Catholic priest to come over and bless the place. And since then we had absolutely no problems. It was, like I said, 1992.
Wow. That's crazy. I tell you what, I've had a lot of, not really experiences to me. I've maybe had a few, but when I started, when I became a field investigator for MUFON and, word around town got out about it, I started getting a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of people coming up to me with their paranormal cases, which, we really didn't look into at MUFON unless it had, was UFO related or anything like that. I mean, usually I would just kind of refer them to, a credible website or something that, they could get in touch with to investigate it further. But I got a lot of good stories from people. But before we get into those, Eddie, have you had any paranormal experiences in your long life?
Well, down in Cuba, the ones I told you, the hen are the only ones that I've ever had experience, and that was again, I was down in Cuba, and I decided to go from the living room. Now again, being out there, it's in the middle of nowhere, very much like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Okay, it was an identical scenario. My house was the only one there. Then maybe not half a mile, but maybe 2-3 blocks away was my grandmother's mother's home. And we were over visiting, and everybody, there's no electricity because it's a farmhouse, and we're out on the farm, so everybody has those oil lamps, and they were like in the living room area, and I decided to go to the kitchen for whatever reason, and lo and behold, I looked to the right, and those doors, like the Western houses, which I mentioned, they have one, and let's say when you go to a Western, you go to the saloon, you have the top door and the bottom door.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is that the top door and the bottom one, a hen stuck its fingers in the middle and the side, and they kind of moved the door back and forth. And then I saw the hen, so I went up there, opened the door, and there was nothing there. So I came out, and then the story was that everybody in the family my mom's cousins and stuff that had lived there, when they were young, everybody had seen the hands, So that's the only thing. But
now, do you ever remember talking with your family about why those hands might have been there? Was there maybe did anybody think it might be a relative or anything like that had passed?
Here's the story with this, Joe. When you are in any country, it doesn't matter where it is. Okay, there's always going to be some type of folklore.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we were going to have a show tonight about folklore, and the person that was going to be our guest decided that maybe we'll do it next week. They were a little busy. But what I'm saying is there were stories there, like, say, for example, my aunt claimed she had seen a giant white rabbit, like the size of a human, and several people saw the giant big rabbit. You're going to have, again, folklore, and people, especially when it's dark, can let their imagination run wild, and they start seeing things that just aren't there. A good example to this is, say, for, like, I'm here now. I'm here where I'm talking to you guys, and I'm hearing footsteps upstairs. Now, the footsteps, believe it or not, it's so funny. It's actually the dog. But the dog walks, and one day I'm like, what the heck? and so I go up there and I go, wow, the dog sounds like, like a person. Now, it's the same situation. One day I'm in the middle of my storage facility, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and I had an office that I had done there, and I hear what I could swear sounded like someone snoring. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Am I hearing somebody snore? So, I was like, at first I'm like, okay, I know I'm hearing something. It's got to be something. So I start walking around because it was bothering me already. I said, I got to get to the source. And lo and behold, I found that I think somebody was actually living in the unit. I realized it because, the snoring got really loud when I was there. I said, okay. The next day I climbed the ladder, take a look over the side, and lo and behold, the person wasn't there, but they had like a bed and everything. I go, wow. Now, another situation like that also is, for example, let's say you have a picture frame in the corner of your room. I'm just using this as an example. And there is a slight wind, a slight push of wind from the kitchen. And the wind finds its way in there, and little by little, it keeps going. All of a sudden, the picture falls by itself. And everybody's like, oh my God, did you see it, fellow? Well, a good example of that is, say, for example, if you take a balloon and you put it in the opposite side of the room where you're in, and you just blow to it very gently, and just give it about a minute, and you'll see that the balloon will move based on you. So what I'm saying is, a lot of that stuff, when you hear footsteps, a person was hearing footsteps. I was watching this in the History Channel, and the footsteps that we're hearing, they realized like a year later, that there was a person living in their cellar, and they had a way of going in and out of the house. And then they found the room that the person had been living there, but the person had left when they found the room.
Wow.
Okay, so it freaked the heck out of the family because somebody had been living. So what I'm trying to say is, when you hear something, there's a good chance, one, could be a raccoon, could be something up there living in your house.
Oh, yeah. It could be a big white rabbit, maybe.
Yeah, big white. No, but the point is that today we do different. Today we set up a camera,
right,
catch the culprit,
Right.
But I think that 95% of the time,
it could be explained. The majority of it, sure,
it could be explained. And here's the other thing. So, okay, there is some type of realm out there, of course. God is the spirit stuff. There's demons. There is a realm that
absolutely
even the Bible mentions to stay away from. But my thing is that in reality, I think, like, even all this UFO sightings and all this stuff, most of the stuff is that people have what they call a wild imagination.
Wild imagination, yeah.
And that's my feeling towards the subject most of the time, because if you're afraid and you fear something, and I mean, how many times, don't tell me that you guys haven't experienced this. You're sitting in your living room, or you're sitting anywhere, all of a sudden you look by and you go, man, I just saw somebody pass by.
And it's Eddie. It's Eddie there looking for a robot monster.
All right, everybody, get a drink.
Take a drink.
Oh man!
But the thing is, it happened. Or if not, your wife will be in the kitchen or something, and you'll hear your son calling you. Hey, and you're like, what? I just heard.
Yeah,
the mind does do that. The mind will play, and
sure.
you can experience when you go to sleep. How many times we'll see something, and 10 years later, whatever we saw, we get this wild dream that it's almost we're like, what the heck am I dreaming this stupid thing, man?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, my son swears in his paranormal activity, and I remember, Joe, we had him in one of the shows.
Oh yeah,
where he saw that this is so funny, Chuck. We're heading up to Boston, okay?
Yeah.
And my son is driving, and I happen to fall asleep in the back seat at that very second when his friend and him are in the front seat, okay?
Yeah.
For 2 seconds, they see fly across the highway what looked like a giant pterodactyl. They're going, oh man, look at it. So they wake me up. But when I wake up, at the moment they go, supposedly it went away. So,
wow, this is like the Twilight Zone where the
yeah.
guy sees the monster on the wing, and when he shows his wife, he's gone.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. You're right. Exactly. That's right. That's a good episode too. But the funny thing is that it was so funny because my son to this day gets mad at me because, when I went up, I always play around. I say, "Yeah, you sure? I'm sure you saw something." But the thing is that there were cars apparently that were slowing down to see whatever they saw flying across.
Wow.
And then he starts reading a book a few months later because he had a job in Barnes and Noble, and it says about the what was do you remember, Joe, what he mentioned at the time?
Oh, that's a Jersey. Was that the Jersey Beast? The Jersey?
No, not the Jersey Devil. There was something that Joe. I don't know if Joe remembers because we were on the show together.
There's actually a lot of
pterodactyl viewings or something.
Yeah, a lot of pterodactyl type creatures that are viewed. Sometimes they look like your traditional pterodactyl. Sometimes they may have a single small horn on the head. Right. But there's a lot of them that are seen on like around the East Coast, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, all that area. I know Pennsylvania around like the Alleghenies and all that. There's been a lot of sightings for them, but as far as I know, there's been no photos or video of anything like that. Usually when people see him, it's for a few seconds.
That's exactly it. And that is the thing that gets me every time we see a flying saucer, unless the one, of course, that you did hear, Chuck, that Joe was abducted one time.
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, Joe was abducted. What was that, Joe? Was it Bigfoot?
They told me they have the robot monster plan. So I went with him. I said I could get Eddie to.
He was abducted by a pterodactyl.
Yeah. look at it. It's kind of funny when we talk about that. But the thing is that I'll bring down the best case scenario. One time when the original Ghost Ship Time was published in 2008. Dave Harvestad and myself kind of together came up with a few of the stories in there. And Dave had, because I said to Dave, hey, Dave, I'm doing this 34-page book, and I've done a couple of the stories inside, especially the one with the submarine and whatever, And I said, I need like a cover story. You have something? So he writes down a quick story about a guy who apparently living in the Adirondacks in upstate New York, or not living in the Adirondacks. He was around the area. He used to go once a week and he meet up with a family of Bigfoot. And then apparently after a while, they gave him a tin can from a coffee thing. And they had put some hair of Bigfoot in there, whatever. And the guy passed away, and the wife now, at the time I worked in a hospital, and the head of the internal audit, an older guy in his 70s, is looking for me. So I'm like, what the heck happened? Why is the internal audit looking for me? Because I had given him a copy of the magazine, and he was looking for me. He goes, Eddie, he's chasing me down. I said, what? He says, that story, I've been looking all over the internet about it, and I can't find a darn thing on it. Now, what am I going to tell the guy at the time that the story was made up? I'm like, oh my gosh, But it was so funny the way that, and that goes over to the story also that Dave one time mentioned, how some people gullible. He had a coffin made for a museum he put up in Lake George, New York, an oddities museum. and he had a coffin made, and he stuck in there a wax Abraham Lincoln. And next to it, he put like a code and all this. And the code he put there was from his, I think, grandfather or something from the 1920s. And he put General Ford or something like that on it. And some lady came up and didn't know that, David was the owner and stuff. He goes, I wonder how in the world would they allow to? And I think, Chuck, if you remember, Dave on the show told us this story. That they said, like, the girl goes, like, how would the government allow you to have Lincoln? So, there are a lot of people out there that, really belong in the Twilight Zone, or they live in it,
Yeah. Hey, did you guys ever experience any form of like a deja vu? I mean, did you go somewhere and you felt like you've been there before? I think that happened to me once or twice. I mean, there was a couple of places I've been to throughout the years, and I said, "Man, this just looks familiar. It looks so familiar," and I just couldn't explain it.
I've never had. I don't. Not that I could recall ever having a deja vu experience. I mean, I'm familiar with it. I've talked to people that have had them, but I don't remember ever having anything like that.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that's kind of really strange with me is I'm very good at people's faces. I mean, like if I meet somebody one time, I could actually sketch them and draw them and so forth. And so I'll like bump into people like 20 years later. And you know what? I mean, I'll have no idea what their names are. I forget names, but faces, I almost have a photographic memory. So like I could look at somebody and say, "Hey, I've seen you before. What do you do?" And then when they tell me, then I say, "Yeah, I bumped into you about 20 years ago at this magic show I did somewhere up in the." Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like people's faces, it sticks in my mind. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm usually good with faces, but names, not
names,
so much.
I'm the same. I could see people and I say, man, I've seen this person somewhere, and then I go crazy trying to figure out where.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's very interesting when you guys are saying that, because a lot of time, one of the worst things when you say about names is when you come across a person that you knew or you were very close to, and they're saying hi to you and you can't remember their name.
Oh,
that's the worst.
That's embarrassing.
Oh my God. Back in grammar school, I'm in 8th grade. Listen to this. Beautiful girl. I'll never forget this. A beautiful blonde. And I had not a crush with, but I was like, man, she's a hot, back in the 8th grade. We fast forward to, I meet my wife. We're going out. I'm picking her up in front of the store where she worked in one time. And this girl passes with her mom, which I had not seen in 15 years, right? Passes with her mom, and she's like, "Hey, Eddie, what's up?" So it gives me a big hug and kiss and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what the hell is her name? And all she was is saying hi. And all I kept thinking is, I got to remember her name, man.
Yeah, I'm bad with that.
And finally, before the end, I was, oh yeah. And I remember her name was Cecilia. And I was like, wow, man, that was close. But, that happens. It's kind of like what you say, Chuck, with the deja vu stuff. Like you go somewhere and you're like, man, this area looks familiar.
Yeah.
I've been here before.
Yeah, it feels like it. Certain places. I don't know why.
It's just like, when you see people's faces, a lot of time look, this is a good example. My mom, the house that we had in Cuba, when we left Cuba, my father, I think, tore it down or stuff. And he sold it to somebody for the wood or whatever it was. And he moved out of the area. And then the entire 300 plus acres that my grandparents used to own, the government took, right? So what happened is that there was a lady that took a picture, a cousin of my mom's, back in the 1960s in front of the house where I lived in. Okay. Now, I've never met this lady. She never saw me, whatever. She knew that I existed, but I think whatever. She comes from Cuba, and I'm working in the hospital. And like I said, this is so funny because she walks in the lobby, and she came to visit here. This was about 10 years ago when this happened. But when she comes to visit, it was from the 60s when the picture. She comes by and goes directly to me and says, "You're the son of such and such." Yeah. And I'm like, "Who are you?" And she goes, "Oh, and then my mom tells me, "You know who that is?" And I go, "Mom, how did she know I'm related to you? She's never seen me.
Is that crazy?
But, yeah, that was crazy. And she basically, and then, my mom and her touched base. They hadn't talked to each other for like over 20, 30 years. But I mean, some stuff like that happens, and it's just phenomenal. Now, like you said, Chuck, you can remember people's faces, like the back of your hand. You have a photograph, but it's just the name that some people remember names and don't remember the face.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which is clueless. But everything when we're talking about, it's the same thing. You go, and don't tell me this doesn't happen. You go to, let's say, Pennsylvania, and you go in the middle of nowhere. It's nice and dark, and you always will hear or see strange things, especially in pitch darkness.
Yeah. Sure.
One thing which I found really weird, and I told you guys that I used to hate flying. I still kind of do anyway. I've flown a little more now, but I used to hate flying so bad that I went to Florida from New Jersey. I drove down there 27 times.
Wow.
Okay, in order not to fly. And I could tell you this much. When you're traveling down states like North Carolina, South Carolina, which are my favorite, like I purposely stay there to go to all the souvenir shops the next day. And me and my wife just love doing that, going to the flea markets there because it's phenomenal. The stuff you get there is it's super cool. So the best part of the vacation is the road trip, right? You know how many times in the middle of the night at 1:00 in the morning, so I'm driving in this way. If you turn off the lights of your car, you see absolutely nothing. And you'll go poof. And then there's somebody walking on the highway in the middle of the night. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, where are those people walking? There's like no home near for 100 miles.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And over 10 times that happened. And then one time I remember too, we passed, I don't know what the heck it was. It looked like, I think it was, I don't know, like a deer or something in the middle. The eyes, when
the car, they glow. They glow.
They glow, but it looked weird. I don't know what the heck it was. And my son was very small, right? So I forgot what it was, but we said, look, the monster or something like that. It's a joke. So one day, the funniest thing in the world was when we came back that month, my wife goes into a Home Depot and she wants to get a plant for the house. And the guy from Home Depot was trying to get it for her. And there were several plants in the front. And he goes, oh my God, it's a jungle in here. And for some reason, when you told my son it's a jungle in there, he thought it was a monster of some sort. And man, anytime I would say, hey, there's a jungle, he would close his eyes because it's pitch dark. But I got to tell you, though, honestly, you can be, and especially working, let's say when I was young, I would do security when I was very young. And they put you in the warehouses in New Jersey where you have like a square mile warehouse. And in the middle of the night, you're there by yourself as a security, and you hear all sorts of movements, sounds. The vents go like,
yeah,
like,
right.
What the hell is that? So that's what I'm saying. A lot I think of paranormal stuff is that our brains just are such an enormous, gigantic computer that it just decides to play with us, And
yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the paranormal stuff is, people's imaginations running away from them. They might have seen too many movies or something, or, they don't take the time to actually, sit and think, okay, could it be this or could it be that? A lot of times they just go to, oh, it's something, it's a ghost or it's a UFO or something like that. But
you know one thing, Joe, and you will know this is correct. If you notice, we grew up watching UFOs and flying saucers on television. Hollywood told us what a UFO has to look like and what an alien has to look like. So anytime somebody claims they had an outer body experience, or they experienced some type of, what they call the thing, abduction or anything. Did you notice that every time they say what the alien looked like, it's always what Hollywood has put into their brain.
That's
It's not
true.
like, for example, right now you say, hey, I just got abducted, man, and this thing had 3 arms and the head was square.
Yeah.
No. Every time.
Yeah, it's always like the standard. Yeah, it's always a standard gray with the Hollywood depiction.
Right, the alien with the long arm, and that's where you go like, wait a minute. And you know what's it's true. It's true that there is a lot of people that have been, army people, people that, but then again, as a fact that how many times the United States government has even said they have make people believe this stuff just to take them away from what they're doing.
Right.
So say, for example, they have a new experimental whatever airplane. They don't want no one. They'll let the UFO thing ride for a while they're experimenting with the plane. This way people won't just know what the hell is going on. and that's the same thing that...
True. It's true.
Look at what happened with this pandemic. I mean, can you, in your mind, see a person who's driving a car? I mean, this is like stupidity at its best. Wearing a mask with the windows up.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that a lot, and I still see it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I mean, are these people naive? Are they just plain stupid?
I just don't get it.
But that's what people are. You tell a person, and they're so like brainwashed, and you can see everything going on right now with the this and that. That not even the government knows what they're doing.
No,
this can happen this way. So what happens is that we can manipulate a person's thinking the way we want it to. For example, right now, I'll tell Chuck, hey, Chuck, I know you sent me the black box. And Chuck will say, yeah, I sent it to you, Eddie. We'll put that in a show, the black box, the mysterious black box from Chuck. And people will go crazy trying to figure out what's inside that black box. Because that's how you motivate a person, how you tell the person. And that's a magician. And you know, Chuck, you're an expert in this because you've done it for, what is it, 62 years?
Close to 40, but 38.
Okay, well, I thought the 62 part was better. But anyway, the problem with this is that you've done it, and what does a magician do? What's the word for it?
Misdirection.
Misdirection, right? You tell them, look at my hand, where your left hand is doing the trick. They're looking at your right hand. So misdirection. You're an expert in that field.
Yeah,
and
that's
Joe,
true.
you actually investigated 3 million plus UFO sightings, and you were a member of MUFON, which I do believe that, I know you don't want to tell the public, but I have a strong feeling that you were tied to the original Project Blue Book in the 60s. You're a little bit older than you are, but we're not going to say nothing. But the point is that, Project Blue Book, that's a good example. The truth behind Project Blue Book, I think, is that this is what they said. I mean, it could be, again, but they did say that after spending so many years doing research and everything, they found nothing. So it was a waste of money, so they closed the pages. Now, maybe that's a lie. Maybe it's true. Who the heck knows?
Yeah, we're never going to know.
But I personally believe that they know exactly what's going on.
Sure.
They found if, looking at space and time and distance, if you want to believe in fairy tales, as they say, and you want to believe in wormholes, which they could exist and stuff, but if a wormhole existed, what is to say a human can go through it, even any type of creature from another race? Because the problem is when, just like if you travel at the speed of light, you will be stretched out like a spaghetti string.
Yeah, gravity.
Right, the gravity. So the point is that if we know black holes, and in fact, I don't know if you guys ever heard of that theory. They say that inside the planet, like inside the Earth, the center of the Earth might hold a black hole, and that's what makes the Earth spin, because they do know that there's like either a huge moon-sized ball of lead or I forgot what, iron in the center of the Earth, and then everything else is melted because of how hot it is. So it spins quicker than the outside, and that's what makes the planet rotate.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a gyroscope kind of thing. There's also the theory that there's a black hole in the center. Then you got this other theories that, well, the Earth has a hollow thing and people come in and out of it. I mean, in reality, we have a space station going around the Earth 24/7.
Yeah.
It's been up to a month. I'm sure that any of that stuff would have been shown. Just like the fact with UFOs. Why is it that the space station doesn't see UFOs? Why is it that the only people that see them are people on the Earth? And how come every time they take a picture of them, they look like washed up, something like Joe's great-great-great-grandmother took back in 1905?
Well, the space station the ISS has seen UFOs. There's a lot of videos you could find during the live feeds from the ISS. Usually what NASA will do is if there's something that's in the feed that shouldn't be there, they always cut it off.
They cut it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of videos from the ISS where they've seen stuff, and there's actually reports of a lot of astronauts that have been on the ISS that have reported seeing strange objects leaving and coming to Earth and all that. So, who knows? But, speaking of, back to the paranormal, I had some really good paranormal reports, years back that I got from people that I knew that I, thought were pretty credible. And the more that I looked into them, they were, pretty legit. So, and a few of them were actually pretty, disturbing when you really get down to think about it. And one of them has to do with a little boy. And, you always hear the stories that, kids, because they're still innocent, their brains are still developing, that they're more susceptible to paranormal activity because they haven't developed yet, and they haven't, been influenced as much by, stuff from the outside, movies and all that. So years ago, a good friend of the family came to me and was telling me the story and wanted to know what I thought about it. And what had happened is that, I've known her, for a very long time. She's a very good person, no nonsense person, not someone who's into paranormal or UFOs or anything like that. Didn't really even know too much about it. But her son at the time, I believe he was around 2 years old, maybe 3 years old. And they were living in a house, same city that I live in, actually not too far from where I grew up. And she was there. It was her and her little boy. And as most little kids have, he had an imaginary friend. So she didn't really think anything of it, but it started to get a little bit, I guess, like past her comfort level, I guess to say. And she started questioning the little boy about, her son about it. And he said, oh yeah, he comes and goes, every once in a while, and he'll sit here and he'll play with me, and he'll talk to me and I'll talk to him. And, she started getting a little bit worried. She didn't want him to start, letting his imagination run away from him, and this, I guess, imaginary friend to get, too big, as most parents do. They worry about that kind of stuff. Yeah, everyone's had an imaginary friend, they're healthy, but, sometimes it could cross over a line to where this was getting. So she started to question her son about it, and he says, oh yeah, it's a little boy, and this is what he's wearing. He's got I believe it was a plaid long sleeve shirt and overalls. And that he comes and goes, and he sits there and plays with him, and the kid, I believe that the kid was supposed to be around 5 or 6 years old. I believe it was maybe 6 years old. I can't recall the exact details. But anyway, she wanted to do her own digging. So she had found out that area where they were living back in the early 1900s was all farmland, as much of our city in Northeast Ohio was, at the time, late 1800s, early 1900s. A lot of it was still farmland until the mills and everything started popping up. But there was in the house that she was in, she found the newspaper where the little boy had died there, and she did a little bit more digging, and they found the boy dead in the room where her son's room is, and that he had died in his sleep or he was playing. It was something like that, but he had died on the bed, and he had on overalls and the plaid long sleeve shirt. And she started freaking out because there would be no way this 3-year-old would know that, but she confirmed what he was, of what his, imaginary friend looked like and what he was doing and, everything else. So I thought that was really,
wow.
Really a good, credible story because, like I said, she was, she's not someone who really believes in this stuff. She didn't know what to think about it. And she was just doing a little bit more digging to try to figure out, if there was something there, because she had talked to a few other people and they said, maybe you should look into it, see if anything did happen at the house. And she dug up all the information on it. And here this little boy was seeing, supposedly this, invisible ghost or whatnot. And that went on for a few months after that. And eventually, as the boy got older, him seeing his imaginary friend eventually stopped. So I thought that was a very,
that's a good, wow,
very credible and weird story. And surprisingly, about 2 streets over from that, another friend of mine, she lived there with her husband and her 2 kids. And she had called me up one day and said, hey, she goes, I had something weird happen to me. She's like, I got some photos of it. She goes, can you come over and take a look at them? So yeah, sure. I'll stop over. I hadn't seen them in a while, so I figured I'd stop over, say hi anyways, and see how everyone's doing. So she started explaining to me that they were all watching TV and they heard movement up in their attic. Now they have a Cape, or I think it was a Cape Cod, and then there was like a little attic kind of crawl space, on the top of the house. And they had heard footprints. They thought it was a raccoon, so they had been hearing the footprint, hearing the I guess, foot movements around and all that, real light patter kind of. So her son got his camera, stuck it up into the hole, where the kind, I don't know what you would call it, where the ladder kind of comes down.
Yeah.
Stuck his camera up there because he was afraid to go up there in case it was a raccoon with, even if it had babies or something, they'll definitely attack you. So he went up there and he snapped a picture. And when he snapped a picture, they looked at it and there was all of these green orbs in the photo. So I'm looking, I'm like, man, that's weird. But, it could be, maybe dust particles being caught by the flash of the camera. So I said, did he take any more photos? And she said, yeah. She goes, he took about 3 or 4, in a row on different directions. And there was only one photo where these green orbs were, nothing else on any of the other photos. And she goes, well, that's not the weirdest part. She goes, we were, blowing up the photo on the phone to see if, what these green orbs were. She goes, and there's a face in one of the orbs. I said, a face? I said, you got to be kidding me. So she showed me the photo and she blew it up on the phone right to this orb. And you could see a face clear as day of, it looked like a kind of like a male face that would look like it was angry.
Wow.
And the photo, I different sizes and all that. Cause I figured, maybe pareidolia could come into play with that, and I looked at it from different angles and everything, and there was definitely no doubt about it that it was a face in this green orb. And I mean, it made my hair stand up, on my arms, and it was really freaky. None of the other orbs had any type of, faces or special features, but this one did, and it was an ugly, mean looking, evil face. And it was, I tell you, it was very scary. And, they had never, after that, they had never heard any more, footprints or anything else like up in that attic. The next day they went up there and looked, make sure there was no animals. There was no sign of any animals being up there or anything. So
it just stopped on its own then, Joe? There was no issue then after that?
No issue. Not that I'm aware of. Now, she never came to me or any of the other family and said anything else was happening. So that was it. And I said, man, I mean, I could still see that face right now, and it is a very evil face. And now they lived in an old house, from, probably 70, 80-year-old house that they had moved into not too long before that. So, who knows what it could have been, if anything, but like I said, I looked at it the best I could. I don't believe it was any type of pareidolia. To me, it looked, I looked at the features extensively. You could see the eyes, the eyeballs, the iris. You could see the nose, the nasal passage, the mouth, the lips, the chin.
Joe,
I mean, it was weird.
Joe, I'm going to tell you something, and the reason I'm going to say this is because doing security a lot of part of my life and stuff, there's always camera systems that overlook different warehouses, different places. And a good example, for example, is here where I have my office. I have a camera that through the night and day is always videotaping. Okay, and what I mean videotaping is to make sure whatever. And the camera only turns on at some when there's a movement or something that passes in front or whatever. And I've realized that it also activates itself with sound. Like somebody can walk up in the second floor and the camera sets off like somebody's walking in. When a dust particle passes in front of it, especially at night, it looks like a reflection so that you get an idea. When you look at the sun during the day and there's like a bubble, or how sometimes when you get a camera and you get those orb-like things, those show up. If you closely look at them and blow them up, they can look like little mice. They can, you know what I'm saying? Like it does create images that sometimes are obviously there. Now, one thing I'm going to say is a good example. In work one night, I'm there and I'm seeing this thing walking, and it would come in like every 30 minutes or so. It walked across where the pool area is. And now there's no one out there. It's pitch dark. And I'm like, what the hell is that thing? And it walked, and it was kind of funny. It walked with a slimy kind of walk. So it looked like a creature that just popped out of nowhere and walked with a slimy kind of walk. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying to myself, what the hell is that, bro? So I'm looking because the camera's capturing it. So I call security and I say, I got to go up. I got to see what the heck, because it's impossible. What the hell is walking? When I go up and I look at the camera, there was on top of the camera not a hair, but it was kind of like from a tree, kind of like the leaf, the part of the leaf that's very stringy, like whatever.
Yeah.
And it had been raining, and that leaf had had drops of water. And every time the wind would blow, it would drop the drop of water in front of the camera, and it looked like somebody was walking across like the pool area.
Isn't that something?
And wow. I said, get the hell. And I realized it was because I said, so what I'm saying is it can play a lot. Now, it's funny that you said that, because in my daughter's house, right, there was an attic up there, and there was a while back, about 2 years ago, I'm sitting outside one day at night and I hear, and when I look behind me, a huge raccoon was about 5 feet away from my head, and it was coming out of the attic. So I go, what the heck is this, man? And it was kind of funny because my grandson would go to sleep and stuff. He always prayed. He was small. He would say that the raccoon can find a new home, So I said the raccoon must have gotten blessed, it was so funny. But the thing is, and this is very interesting, the raccoon. So then I decide to go on Amazon and I buy one of those cameras a few months ago, and I stick the camera through a hole up there to see what the heck is in the attic. And the funniest thing is I see what looked like a body wrapped up. It's got this blue, it looks like an umbrella or something up there, right? And I said, so I joking around, I said to my son-in-law, I think you got a body up in the roof there. You're going to have to check. You're going to have to, but anyway, they're doing the repairs and stuff. What it is actually an umbrella that they put up there. and it's funny, we haven't gotten it yet because it's in the opposite, but Right now, they took off part of the attic to make the ceiling higher, and they opened everything up there. And right now, I'm in the middle of construction right now, so I speak.
Well, hey, I hate to cut in here, but we got about 35 seconds left here, man. This was a conversation tonight.
So you know what? To make a long story short, it's kind of funny when you said the attic part. But go ahead. Let's finish up then.
All right. So I want to thank you, Chuck, once again for joining us in our conversation, and hope to see you back shortly.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, probably within a week or two for a video cast. And everyone out there, don't forget July 1st at 10 p.m. our live video cast. Find it on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So everyone out there, thanks for joining us, and good night.
Okay. God bless. Take care.
God bless, guys. Good night now.